Hello guys, welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to hold a side post plant as a T in CS2. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. By the way, we are doing free giveaways every month. In these giveaways, you can win various CS2 skins and free CS2 course access passes created by a Faceit level 10 coach who has experience in high tier CS2 teams. To sign up, simply visit the CS2 Pulse giveaway page and follow the instructions. Link is in the description. And without further ado, let's get straight into it. So let's begin by talking about the best positions to play as a T in post plant scenarios in A side. Here are, in my opinion, the best positions that you should play in a post plant scenario. The most common position in general in a post plant scenario is playing backside. This position is very good because you can look at all of the angles that CTs can come from in a retake. A huge benefit is that you have these large two barrels that are covering you from main, so you can watch main. Once you move to the right, you can also watch hut. Then you can focus towards main again from this angle. You can also look more to the right if you want to check towards vents. And most importantly, if you only want to watch heaven, then you can focus on it by standing behind the barrels and looking at heaven like so. You can even move slightly more to the right. However, keep in mind that if you do, you will be slightly visible from hut, so it depends on what angle you use. Ideally, if you stand here and look at heaven like so, you won't be spotted rather from main or from hut. However, you do need to keep in mind for the certain positioning, because standing here is very common and CTs usually peek out towards heaven like so. They check this angle first, then they check here, then they rather focus towards vents or instantly focus towards this angle. That's why if you want a slight off angle, you can also stand closer towards here. If you smoke main, like so for example, then you are covered from main and you don't have to be worried about it. Then you can stand slightly closer. You can rather stand here. I suggest not standing too close because when you do, you won't spot the T's as they entry into the site. That's why my suggestion is to stand close to this yellow line so you can see the CTs as they cross from heaven towards site. And if you ever get pressured by several angles and you're paranoid about heaven, then you can just quickly molly it by just pulling out your molly like so and then aiming on the top of this vent, or you can even aim at the top of this roof if you want. It's up to you. I prefer aiming on top of the roof. However, aiming on top of the vent is also good if you aim directly at this rectangle. If you move a bit further, you might miss the molly and it might land on top of you. That's why I just suggest throwing this safe molly instead. However, if you do throw it, make sure you don't throw it against this line of the vent, because then the molly might drop down. That's why my suggestion is to line it up against this lamp and aim above it. You can aim more to the left if you want as well, and then after you throw it, the molly doesn't land against it, it lands on top of the roof and then it starts mollying the entire heaven. If you want to smoke heaven, then I just suggest aiming at the top of this rectangular vent and aiming in the middle or slightly above, and then just throw the smoke. This covers heaven fully and you won't be paranoid about it, so you can focus towards other angles. Overall, this position is the safest and the best bet if you want to win a retake scenario. If you're in a 1v2 or even a 1v3 or even more enemies, then you have a bigger chance if you stand in this corner, because you can move from the left towards the right and you can micromanage the angles if you stand by this cover. Another very good position that CT should definitely play in a post plant scenario is behind this vent. This vent has a lot of info, because if you stand here, CTs definitely make a lot of noise as they rotate. You can even hear CTs as they jump up this area or they just walk around towards heaven. You can also instantly hear if they start rotating towards main. This is a very good position for info. However, you do need to have a smoke sometimes, just in case if you get mollied, or instead if you're not paranoid about being mollied, then you can just quickly smoke main and then stand in an area where if you do get mollied from main, or rather single door, then you can just quickly exit and peek out. However, in my opinion, standing here with a smoke is a bit better if you don't have squeaky covered. If no one is watching squeaky, then someone from CT, if they're going squeaky, they can just simply open the door and molly you, and then they can just peek right after. That's why you constantly need someone to watch the flank, which brings me to my next position. Holding the flank is very important and you can do it from several angles. You can rather stay in this corner like so. However, make sure that you're not watching it like this, because then you give up this area and then CTs can crawl through you and then go towards hut. That's why I suggest standing close to this box and just holding it like so, or you can stand more deeper if you want, even like so. the most important part is that you do see this area. Another good off-angle corner, if you want to play, you can play in this corner. You can just stand here and focus towards radio, and keep in mind that you will have to flick if you see enemies who are going from T-spawn towards you. Another good way of watching lobby is just walking up this ladder and then standing in the corner like so. This corner is a bit better than standing in this corner, because this way you will be spotted at the same time by several players if they peek at the same time, and it will be way more difficult to flick around like so than instead flicking like so. If you only want to watch HUD, which I wouldn't recommend doing because you do waste some info for holding flank, is standing in this part of HUD. This position is also good if you only want to focus towards watching the flank of HUD. However, as I did mention previously, you will not spot anyone who is going towards Squeaky. That's why, in my opinion, the previous positions that I showed were way better than this one. The only benefit of this position is if you are prepared for CTs to go into heaven, that way you can watch this area. However, keep in mind that you will be visible from trophy room. That means that CTs might peek you and instantly kill you. That's why this position is very risky, and you should only use it if you have the full info that no one is flanking you. Another very good position is just standing behind this vent. It has a huge cover and no one from heaven can spot you if you're hugging the wall. Even if you crouch, you won't be visible at all. And a huge benefit is that you can quickly peek out and assist your teammates if someone is pushing heaven. And another benefit is that you can also support main, while you can also hold Squeaky if someone tries to flank you. This position is very good, but it does get mollied often. That's why I always suggest having a smoke, or as I mentioned previously, as in this position, you should have a smoke to smoke main. That way you won't be paranoid if you have to rotate after a molly. You won't get shot 100% of the time. And worst case scenario, if you do get pressured and you see that you can't win the retake, then you can instantly drop down towards vents, and then you can just rotate quickly towards secret if you see that there's no chance of you winning the round. Now let's talk about the secondary positions that are also very good and off-angled, however they are a bit more risky. The first position is on top of HUD. If you play on top of HUD, you have several benefits and you have a few downfalls. The first benefit is that you can watch main and you can see this slight angle, so you have an advantage for when CTs peek out main before they entry here. You can instantly spot them like so. Another benefit is that you have an off angle towards heaven, and you can also hear people if they're flanking lobby, and you can catch them off guard by standing on top like so. You can do the same if you're holding Squeaky. You can just quickly peek out like so and hold it like so. It's a very good off angle and it has a lot of benefits because you can hold every single position. However, the biggest downfall is that it's a very open position and it has minimal cover. That means that dropping down will be the only way to survive if you get pressured, and it's even a huge question if you will survive, because as you drop down, CTs can instantly spam you still while you're in the air, and then you will have a lot of casualties. That's why, in my opinion, playing in this position is a bit risky. However, if you're playing for a high risk, high reward game, then you can use this position definitely. Just keep in mind that if you use it too often in a single game, then CTs might expect you doing it over and over again. Another questionable position that I see a lot of Ts use in retake scenarios is playing behind this box. The only benefit of this position is if you know that no one is flanking you and no one is peeking from heaven. If your teammate has heaven control, then it's way safer, but if you don't, then it becomes really difficult, because when CTs peek out heaven, they instantly spot your head. No matter if you're standing up or crouched, they will still spot you and they can instantly call for you, and they can even shoot you without being visible from this area. That's why playing in this position is very difficult, because you do have to focus on several angles at the same time, and you only have a single cover, which is this box. And even if you do have this covered, you can get pressured by CTs if they just simply decide to push you like so, and you're in a singular angle. That means it's easy for them to pre-fire you. Another downfall of this position is CTs can also molly you if they just throw the simple molly. After the molly, you have no cover at all. That means you have to rotate towards HUD or towards backside, and you will be open to so many areas that it becomes really difficult. The only good thing about this position is that it's a very sneaky position, and as I mentioned previously, if you do have heaven control or at least flank control, so no one pushes you from HUD, then you can try to stand in this position and catch main players off guard, like peeking like this. And you can also catch players who are playing towards squeaky or vents off guard. If you just quickly hold it like so, you can quickly watch vents, and you have some cover as well. And if someone decides to peek squeaky and open the door, you can also just quickly peek from that position and catch them off guard. Another really questionable position that I see a lot of Ts play on post plant scenarios is behind this box. This box is a very risky position because you have to focus towards main and HUD at the same time. However, you are so open towards main that it really becomes difficult to stay focused towards HUD. If you want to kill the opponent 100%, it becomes really difficult as you have to fully focus towards it. And the only solution towards this problem is if you do smoke main. If main is smoked, then you have some flexibility. However, even though you are visible from HUD, you will also be visible from heaven if you're standing up, because CTs can see your head as you stand here. That's why you always need to stay crouched. And when you stay crouched, it becomes really easy for enemies to kill you because your entire body becomes smaller, and then they can just instantly focus towards your head, which will become way more difficult for you since you have to instantly headshot them as you stand in this position. Another problem with this position is that it has minimal rotation and minimal cover. The only cover it has is from heaven. However, as I mentioned previously, if you do not crouch, you don't even have that cover. That's why, in my opinion, playing in this position is only good if you want to catch CTs fully off guard and you have main control or heaven control or at least HUD control, so you can focus on one of the angles. And keep in mind, if you are just playing in this position to watch main, then there are way more better positions than this one, and you should only use it if you have really good aim and you are confident in it. Now let's talk about some ideas that Ts usually do in post plant scenarios. One of them being is they constantly love to rotate around the map. Ts love to go around ramp to flank the CTs from heaven. Just keep in mind that you need to start shifting from here. However, it is a very good strat if you want to catch CTs off guard, and if your teammates pressure heaven by mollying it so CTs can't push towards A side really quickly, then you can definitely catch them off guard if you just quickly slip in behind and just kill them. Another good way of playing it is also to flank towards silo. If you just walk up this ladder really quickly, then jump up like so, jump up this area of silo, and then quickly drop down towards main, then you can catch CTs off guard like so. However, keep in mind that CTs will hear you if you run really quickly. Even if you run against silo, CTs can easily hear you if they stand in this corner or they just stand here in general. That's why it becomes really difficult to rotate quickly around here. However, if you do catch them on timing or they get flashed and their sound is really covered and they can't hear you running, then it might be a good idea if you just quickly flank them. A huge mistake I see Ts do in a post plant scenario is drop down towards vents. This idea isn't very good unless you are planning to run around secret, but even if you do run around secret, by the time you do, CTs will be inside most of the time, or they will just abandon the plan and just save instead. So it takes really long time. Instead, play in the previous positions that I showed, and you have a way higher chance of defending the site and winning the round. If you smoke main, you have way more flexibility as you can rotate and move around more, and you can also pressure by shooting through the smoke to catch CTs off guard or to make them scared in general. Smoking heaven is also very effective because you can just simply hold the angle and you don't get pressured by any CTs, as if they do get smoked, they will not entry most of the time unless they use a flash combo, because CTs love to do these flash combinations. For example, they can just throw it against this wall and then just try to run out after the flash. You should always keep in mind for these strats. That's why you should always prepare to flick just in case if they flash you. And the main benefit is that you can just hold these areas and CTs need to drop down or rather walk against the scaffolding. That's why it becomes really difficult for them. Ideally, you should smoke both of these areas, because then even positions like these ones on top of HUD, as I mentioned previously, are very good, because then you can manage both of the angles at the same time and you're not really paranoid about them. However, keep in mind that for this scenario you will need at least 2 smokes to smoke each of the positions, and usually in the start of the round the Ts love to use at least 1 smoke to smoke main as they enter squeaky. That's why you really need to save your smokes, and these smokes are usually only used after you plant the bomb. Thank you everyone for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed. This was how to play on A side post plant 3 stones. Thank you everyone for watching the video. This was how to hold Faceit post plant as a T in CS2. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.